Imagine you're in a meeting with your team and the discussion is going okay-ish, but you feel the tension is rising. Then you start to only hear two people talking back and forth to each other in frustration. The rest of the team is silent. There is a big disagreement in the room that is slowly creeping into the uncomfortable conflict space. What do you do? Hey, it's Daria here. Welcome. Here we talk about how to build awesome teams, and as we all know, there is no team without conflict. Sometimes the conflict is out there in the open and everyone knows about it. And sometimes it appears like an elephant in the room that no one wants to acknowledge. In some rare cases, the conflict is brewing in secret, only to explode in your face in the most unexpected moment. Whatever the situation is, if you want your team to be successful and become high-performing at some point, you need to be able to address team conflict effectively. Whether you're a scrum master, team lead, or just a team member, conflict resolution skills are some of the core skills you have to have. So let me give you some practical tips on how to deal with conflict in the workplace. But before I continue, if you like this kind of content and want me to make more of these videos, consider subscribing to my channel. I post at least one long video and a few shorts a week. We are aiming for 10K subscribers by the end of 2022. Every like and every subscriber counts. Thank you for supporting the channel. Okay, let's talk about conflict. I know you want me to give you some magic solutions on how to address it and very likely how to avoid it. But let me first talk about why conflict is your best friend and why you should actually encourage it. You see, every great team has conflict. Yep, team conflict is inevitable, but it's actually pretty good. I would say that the worst thing you can do for the development of your team is to avoid all conflict or to pretend it's not there. When we bring a group of individuals together, we want not only to see the benefits of teamwork, but we also want to expand the knowledge with different opinions and approaches. One person working on their own, no matter how smart they are, will be focusing on a limited number of beliefs and ideas. While when a team comes together, they are able to review a multitude of different ideas and come up with the most optimal solutions based on their combined knowledge. The solution that a single person might never find due to the limitations they face. This means that we want the team to be able to discuss their different opinions and ideas, and that will likely lead to disagreements and conflict. To clarify, I'm not talking about mean-spirited conflict here. Any great team will have healthy, productive conflict, a passionate and unfiltered debate around issues. It's not about the people, who is right, who is wrong, their personal traits, and whatnot, all of those things related to personality. It's about the best solutions to the problems the team is facing. Without conflict, there is no team. Let's say we have a team and they don't have any conflict whatsoever. Everybody agrees with everybody. I would say that's suspicious. Often this means that there is actually conflict, it's just hidden. What I mean by that is that people most likely disagree with their teammates on some topics, but they don't say anything. There might be a number of reasons for why that is, like they don't want to hurt their teammates' feelings, or they don't feel safe to speak up because they think it might be used against them. Or they're afraid of conflict, or they have a tendency of avoiding it in general. While it might seem like a good thing, especially for the person not speaking up, this actually leads only to negative outcomes, such as resentment towards others and unwillingness to commit to ideas that they disagree with. This also doesn't mean that the conflict isn't there, it just means that it's not seen and hence cannot be addressed. There is a very good reason for why you want to know there is a conflict as soon as possible, and that is conflict comes in stages. There is a great model developed by Speed Lias for assessing the level of conflict in a situation. It states that if a conflict is not addressed, it will tend to get worse, and that if it gets worse, it will progress through several levels, eventually getting to a point where it's impossible to resolve. Level 1. The conflict starts as a problem to solve, something that highlights that team members have conflicting goals, values, or needs. If the team members do not address the conflict at this point and come to a solution, the conflict will escalate to level 2, where disagreements start surfacing. At this point, the discussion becomes more personal and the problem gets more difficult to define. So the team starts to build some distrust and personalize the problem. Without resolution, the conflict escalates to level 3, where the two sides enter a contest of sorts. It's no longer about the problem, but about who is right, who will win, or who will lose. Other team members start to choose sides. Everyone forgets what the problem was actually about, and personal attacks start. If this is not resolved at this point, the conflict escalates to level 4, where it's about fight or flight. The conflict shifts from winning to getting rid of people we disagree with. At this point, people have identified who they are siding with. The problem is forgotten, and the discussion becomes more ideological, more personal. And at some point, the team will arrive at level 5, the intractable situations where the personalities have become the focus of the conflict. It's at this point that it is almost impossible to resolve the situation. It's just too late. The team's energy is centered on the elimination or destruction of the other side. In the world of organization, that might mean getting someone fired or getting someone removed from the team to kind of resolve the conflict or highlight who actually won this situation. It's easiest to understand any model by applying it to a real-life situation. So imagine this. A team lead is reviewing a developer's code, and upon completing this, says that it needs to be changed because it's not good enough. The developer disagrees. Think of how this situation may escalate if they don't come to an agreement at some point. Like, the developer starts thinking that the team lead is being unreasonable and disrespectful, and the team lead starts thinking that the developer is just stupid. And then it continues. Addressing conflict. Okay, so now we have a good understanding of all things conflict. What do we do with it? Very good question. As always, there is no magic wand to fix it all, but I'll give you some practical tips you can implement. Let's get started. 1. Help people get comfortable with conflict. As I mentioned before, having healthy conflict in a team is a necessity. It means you want to make sure that your team knows it and is not afraid of it. You can run a workshop or on this topic, or use coaching moments in other meetings, or just overall. Say it as is. As a team, we will have some disagreements in opinions, and that is absolutely fine. This is how we'll be able to find the best solutions. So when you disagree, be sure to voice it, and we'll work together to resolve it. The most important is to keep this conflict healthy and productive, and I'm here to help. 2. Set some rules around conflict. Yes, you want to have conflict, but your team needs to know how to deal with it, at least in simple terms. The easiest way to get started with this is to set some team agreements around conflicting situations. Ask questions like, what do we do when there is a disagreement? What happens when a conflict can't be resolved? Who has the final word? If you need help with setting team agreements, I have a guide you can use to run an engaging and productive workshop with your team. I'll put the link in the description, as always. 3. Recognize when there is conflict. One more level in the Speed-Lias model is level 0, depression, or anger turned inward. Sometimes team members don't know they are in conflict because they are in a state of depression. You want to avoid this situation, and that's where the next important step in resolving conflict comes in. Your goal is to raise team members' awareness that there are problems to be solved. You want to make it extremely clear and transparent. And we talked a lot about transparency already, so this is a good example of where it becomes essential once again. You can use the sprint retrospective to highlight it, or say if you see it happening in the moment, address it right then and there. 4. Identify the problem to solve. Looking back at Speed-Lias model, we can see how quickly the attention can turn from the problem itself to the people involved and become pretty personal. To avoid this escalation, you want to clarify the problem at hand and even document it for future reference. Actually write it down. What is the disagreement about? What are the options, opinions, and ideas suggested? And here, do not focus on who those ideas are coming from, because this is actually irrelevant. What are the pros and cons of each opinion? Ask for a rational and unbiased look. Maybe even ask the opposing side to describe the pros of the competing approach. Whenever you feel the conversation is moving away from the problem, bring it back. Like, say something around the lines of, "We are here to talk about this specific issue, so let's stay focused." 5. Teach your team to use tools and models to address conflict. You can't just throw someone who doesn't know how to swim in the water and just hope they learn to swim somehow. Especially if you're a Scrum Master. And I'm not talking about being a coach and helping someone to learn how to swim. I'm talking about the team. Apart from having the team agreements answer some questions about disagreements and conflict, you need to bring in some practical ways to address it. There are some tools and models that can be quite helpful. While they might not be able to become a magic wand for you to solving all of the disagreements, they can help keep conflicts from escalating. And as we've seen, this is pretty important because at some levels, it's too late. How do we make sure it's not getting to that point where it's too late? Well, firstly, I would recommend to look into the Nonviolent Communication by Marshall B. Rosenberg. It is a method designed to increase empathy and improve communication. It encourages the change in the language we use in conflict situations from judgment, interpretations, or criticisms to expressing feelings and needs. I'll link the book and the video that gives you a bit more of an explanation of the model in the description so that you can learn a bit more about it. So I do recommend looking into that in more detail. Another great tool is the empathy map. I mentioned it a couple of times in my older articles. So basically, the empathy map is an exercise you can run with the people involved in conflict to help them understand the other party better and to create empathy in how they communicate with each other. So as you can see, empathy plays an important role in addressing the conflict. And of course, if there is the environment of trust in your team, then you will have a better chance of resolving some conflicting situations much quicker. I have a video, by the way, about building trust in teams, and as always, I'll link it down in the description. And that is it for this video. Let me summarize everything that we have covered. First, every great team will have conflict. Without conflict, there is no team. Conflict comes in stages, and it might be too late to resolve it sometimes if it escalated too high. When you are addressing the conflict, there are a few things you can do. First, help everyone become more comfortable with conflict. Second, set some rules around conflict and team agreements on how to address it. 3, recognize when the conflict is actually happening. 4, identify what the problem is and what the options are without linking them to the people involved. And 5, teach your team on how to use different tools and models to help them with the conflict resolution, such as nonviolent communication and the empathy map. I hope you learned something new, and if you did, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this YouTube channel. As always, back to you, a question for you. What are some of the tools and practices you use to help you address team conflict in the workplace? Share in the comments below. And I'll see you in the next video. Cheers and Scrum on!